This is not my perception, but I think a lot of Midwesterners, or Iowans, or in general, kind of feel forgotten about, or this is a flyover state. I heard that a lot. Shifting from Democrat to Republican, it wasn't so much about the party as much as it was going from a politician to a non-politician. And I always kind of thought of it was like a middle finger vote. And I think people are just fed up.
In this final episode, I sit down with Travis Charlson, a fellow alumni of St. Ansgar High School who returned home to become a journalist at the local newspaper. Travis was also my director of photography on this series, and we caught up a year later to reflect on the project.
When I was at Iowa State, part of the requirement for the journalism school is you have to have an internship to graduate. So I started looking around at places to go, in the journalism field. And I had friends that had, graduated a year before me, or, had done internships at places like the Des Moines Register and that sort of thing. And I was looking at it like, I could go to some suburb of a city like that, write for a big paper, but I'd be covering stuff like, the police blotter, like some guy shot someone else. And, but just a place that was, I didn't know anyone there. I didn't know who these people were. I didn't really care about them per se. It just kind of dawned on me one day, hey, I'll go check out the local paper in my hometown where I went to school. And I kind of just walked in one day and said, hey, can I help out, sort of thing, and got an internship. Graduated after that, finished my schooling because of it. And then right as I finished my internship, the old publisher of the paper sold it to a businessman in town, Lindsay Falk, and Lindsay offered me a job right away, and the pay was good, and I kind of have free reign to be creative and do a lot of different things within the newspaper and make videos and do that kind of thing. So it's exciting for me because I get to have irons in many different fires and try a lot of different endeavors while still doing what I went to school for. I think journalism is extremely important, in any community, big or small. If you look at, it's interesting because if you look at the Constitution, the one industry that the Constitution singles out and says it should be free is the press, which I think is very interesting. They don't say, well, you have the right to free business or free enterprise, or that sort. They don't say anything about any sort of other industry, but they do mention the free press. So right there, that kind of shows you in the First Amendment, when they wrote the Constitution, they had that in mind. So I think it's very important to preserve the press. I guess I had a teacher in college that would always say that as a reporter, your job is to report the facts in the most interesting way possible. And whether that's visually or storytelling wise, when I write an article, I always try to give the readers a reason to pick up the paper. And to be viable and to stay viable, you have to do that because there's so much competition. You're competing with Facebook and Instagram and all these other apps that people can just pull up on their phone. So you have to be interesting for one, and then you gotta write about things that people care about too. And it kind of goes back to why I stumbled into the office, in the newspaper office in St. Ansgar for my internship in the first place. Is the people around here are people that I care about, and so it's more rewarding for me to tell their stories than to tell the stories of some stranger in some strange place. I think the big problem facing rural areas everywhere is people. The ones we have are, for the most part, wonderful people, but we just don't have enough of them. If you look at a business on Main Street, a lot of times their hours are, they're not open every day. They're not open all day. I think what makes a community thrive or grow is there has to be individuals within that community that are willing to, or able to, or have the desire, the focus, the drive to put together and create something that will draw in other people. You know, you can have all these nice things in these communities, but you got to keep it up. You can't just because trends change, right? What's popular today might not be popular 50 years from now. So if you open a business or something that sells a certain product, that's not going to, you know, last forever or whatever. You got to have someone else come along and, you know, have the next big thing. So I think for communities to prosper or survive or, you know, just improve, grow, you have to have people that are willing to take risks and be forward thinking and creative. I think generationally, the baby boomers and the older generations were very economy oriented in where they moved and where they went to work. Where they went to work sort of drove where they lived. So the people followed the jobs. But in today's world, we're kind of going through a phase where that's shifting, where now the jobs have to follow the people. And so I think that's because, you know, millennials and Gen Z, you know, younger people, young adults now, they're not so much about material things that they don't want to buy. A lot of people aren't interested in buying their own house or their own acreage or, you know, that kind of thing. They want to have experiences. They want to travel. They want to, you know, you know, it's all about putting that selfie on Instagram with, you know, while you're at the Grand Canyon or wherever you are at the, you know. So I think the psyche of, you know, the population and how you look for jobs has sort of shifted in that direction. So if you're gonna, you know, compete to have people, you've got to be able to offer experiences, and the predominant experience here, I think, is basically family.
All right, I am joined today by Travis Charlson. Travis was my director of photography and my partner on this project. It's good to see you, Travis.
Ben, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? That's actually what I want to ask you. You know, lots gone on since we saw each other last. So, how's 2020 treated you so far?
Oh gosh, you want the real answer? Or you want the typical? Oh, it's been great. You know, no, it's. I think it's been
The real
an
answer,
interest.
please.
Yeah, yeah, it's been an interesting year. I think for everybody, kind of adjusting to, you know, the world around us.
What does that look like on the ground in Iowa? Just to remind our viewers, you know, you work for the Enterprise Journal, which is a local newspaper in the area. So I feel like you have sort of an eye out on the community. How has that been for the community at large to sort of deal with all of these different aspects of 2020?
Um, I guess, you know, just like everybody else, when the pandemic hit, we kind of shut down everything, and nobody was going out or doing anything, and it felt just like a really long snow day, you know, where you're kind of stuck inside and nothing going on. But now people are kind of starting to creep out again, and things are sort of getting back to normal. A lot of social events kind of get canceled and stuff, but you know, school's back in session and sports are up and going again here in Iowa. And for the most part, I think, you know, I can only speak for, you know, the school districts we cover, but they've done a pretty good job of, you know, being safe. And, you know, like volleyball, for example, they have kids standing off to the side. So when the ball goes out of bounds, they clean the ball off after each play. And then all the kids are wearing masks. And so they're finding ways to, you know, be somewhat normal and kind of be safe and as much as they can be.
I wanted to ask you about the Derecho. This is not something I think that really was high necessarily on the radar of us on the coast, and maybe that's something we can talk about. But I know it didn't hit our hometown specifically, but can you fill us in a little bit of what the derecho was and how it affected Iowans in that area?
It was essentially this big storm that came through, and it had just like hyper fast winds, and it was like the equivalent of getting hit by a, I don't know what, say category 4 or 5 hurricane basically came through, and it just wiped out, crops and property, houses, communities all throughout, about central east Iowa, I think, kind of the Cedar Rapids area is where it really hit hard. And it caused, millions and millions and millions of dollars of damage. We have a big ag economy here in Iowa, and when you're, farming, you're planting something in the spring and hopefully take it out in the fall. But if there's nothing to take out in the fall, then you got to hope you have good insurance to cover that. So it's put a big pinch on a lot of people in the ag industry. And well, what do we do now? Because everything's been lost.
And it seemed to me, in looking at people's Facebook posts and maybe some of the public sentiment, that there was a little bit of maybe upset or disappointment around the way the national media had covered it, or how long it took the national media to cover it. Working in media, do you feel like you have any perspective or opinion on that phenomena?
The news cycle lately has just been one thing after another. So I feel like it's kind of hard to break through national news anymore because there's just so much going on. What happened 2 days ago feels like it's a month ago already because of how quickly things pop up. And the reason why you weren't hearing much about it is because a lot of rural small town newspapers and media outlets and stuff, radio stations, TV stations, have kind of dried up or consolidated, and there's a lot less journalists today than there was 10, 20, 30 years ago. So they were kind of attributing a lot of the lack of coverage to the fact that these types of media jobs aren't around rural communities like they used to be. So, if there's nobody writing, talking, or, taking video of it, then who's going to find out about it?
Can you speak a little bit more about the sort of lack of local journalism and the ways that the Enterprise Journal has tried to meet that?
Everybody is interested in, the people around them and the people they know and their community and that sort of thing. I think we all have an interest in that. And it's been so hard from a journalism standpoint because back then, you put the paper out, or you'd turn on the radio and like the TV station, and like that's what you had to get information, right? But now it's like we have got to compete with Facebook, we've got to compete with Google, we've got to compete with all these different entities, these that are millions and millions of people are using every day, and it's like we can't compete with Facebook, right? So we have to basically join them, make our own Facebook account, and put our stuff on there. So and then all the ad dollars go to Facebook because that's where all the eyeballs are going, right? So it's really made it hard to, it almost forces you into if you can't beat them, join them scenario. So, we lose all our ad revenue because Facebook took it all. And then we've got to use Facebook to get all of our content out there too now. So it's like they basically inserted themselves as a middleman between local people and local news. And I think because it's such a vast community online now, that a lot of the local news gets lost amidst all the other stuff that's on there.
So I'm going to switch directions a little bit here and ask about the project that we worked on together. Having some hindsight now, having it be over a year since we shot it, I'm wondering, looking back on it and just the process, what do you think that you've learned or discovered or understood now, looking back on the process as opposed to being in it?
In a general sense, I'm still kind of trying to wrap my head around the political climate in this country, but I will say I have come to understand more so why certain people feel the way they do when they vote, I guess. And I've kind of always known it, but I haven't been able to articulate it well. Like for example, why do people vote for Trump or something, and I feel like I've come to grips more with, where I've learned more, what kind of makes people tick, and in that sort of sense. And I think I think a lot of people are feeling, a lot of people are saying people are angry, which is true, but I think a lot of people are feeling kind of embarrassed or humiliated, or they feel like they're being talked down to or disrespected in some way. And I think that's why they vote the way they do.
And in looking at the election to come, what are your feelings about it now that we're sort of, 50 days out from the election? How do you feel?
I think it's going to be interesting. To me, it feels like Trump has done all these things, right? And so people aren't going to vote for him again. But I don't know if he's going to win again, but I do think it'll be interesting to see how many people do actually vote for him. I don't think he's going to lose as many votes as people think he might. And maybe I've been reading the wrong stuff, or drinking the wrong Kool-Aid or something. Like, who knows these days? It seems like truth is like a fiat currency where your money's good here, but it's not good elsewhere, sort of thing. I've come to understand why people vote for Trump, and it's not because they like Trump's policies or because they, like Trump for a person. And some people like his policies. I don't want to say it's everybody's that way, but they like his attitude more than they like his policy, I think. They just like the fact that he skewers the people they don't like, and that's what they like about him. So it doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter if he's, and these people, I mean, and I've come to understand that, these people that like him for that, that they've got, I don't know if legitimate's the right word, but I understand where they're coming from. A lot of them have, a lot of it's poor, working class people in the Midwest, usually white, that have been, haven't really been handed anything or living paycheck to paycheck, hardly getting by. They're not getting ahead like, their parents did. This is, I think today's generation is the first generation in American history that is expected to make less than their parents did. And I think, all the connotations that come with that is that, people aren't getting ahead anymore. And I think they feel that the liberals or the elites or the people on the coast, or however you want to define it, I think it's kind of an arbitrary term. And I don't even think people really specifically know who they're mad at, but they're mad at those people because they feel like, oh, I don't have a college degree, so then I'm not good enough. So, they feel like they've been talked down to. They feel like they've been disrespected. So to them, the people that have been doing the talking down, or hey, you need to behave this way, or, you don't check the right diversity boxes, or, you're privileged and that sort of thing. They hear that and they go, well, gee, I'm a paycheck away from, not getting groceries next week. I don't feel privileged, right? So then, and then they see, everything on the news, and, side note, conservative media does a great job of, hyping this up and telling people, how to feel, and, really fueling the fire, I feel. But, these people, that they don't feel like they're heard anymore. And so that's why they're voting the way they do, is, it's just, I like Trump because you don't like Trump, sort of thing. That's not how I feel. I'm just putting that out there. That's not how I feel, but that's what I think a lot of people do feel. And I don't think that's understood in a lot of places.
In sort of summing up, because this is the finale, of this series, if you were to sum up maybe in a couple sentences or in a closing statement, what do you think is important for people on the coast to know or understand about the Midwest or about North Iowa?
People come to their conclusions for a reason. They have something that probably happened in their life, or they, read or saw something that changed them in some way. And so I think a great start to, trying to, heal some of this damage we've been doing to ourselves is to, at least understand that we all, we have to remember that we've all seen different things. We've all lived through different experiences. And I don't think because of that, any of us are any better or any worse than anybody else. I just think that's where the starting point of the conversation needs to kind of get back to, is because right now, everybody expects everybody to understand how they feel, and everybody does deserve to, have people listen to them and have their issues heard.
Yeah, I think we live in bubbles these days. And to me, the beauty of this project was to go outside of our bubbles and connect with people that were different than us. And I really so greatly appreciate you being a yes to being my partner in this and jumping into this with me. It certainly would never have happened without you, in so many different ways, but especially in the way that I feel like you've built relationships and trust in the community, and people know you. And so in a way, I was sort of coming in as an outsider, but you could kind of be my local guide and partner in this. And to work with you and to be able to lean on your experience and expertise, that really is what made the project what it was. And so I'm really, really grateful and thankful for you, not only for being a part of it last year, but also for agreeing to follow up this year and kind of give me some insights into what's been going on in 2020.
Well, I appreciate that very much. I just feel like I'm just trying to make my community a better place, because my community is a little bit better than, our country's a little bit better, and then the world's a little bit better.
Well, thank you, my friend. Thank you for the time today. And I hope we stay in touch through the coming year.
Absolutely.
In closing this final episode, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all the people who allowed me into their homes, who welcomed me back into the community, and who were courageous and vulnerable enough to share their opinions, their stories, their challenges, and their passion. Thank you for helping me to understand what I'd missed in these 15 years since I've been away. And thank you for helping me to understand what a lot of people miss when we stick so committedly to our own little bubbles. It's good to be home again. I just hope that in this next year, we can all be well, that we can all find happiness, and that we can all find compassion for one another in the times ahead.